What does it mean to get the backstory? It means asking the hard questions and getting to the heart of what matters about your mental, spiritual, financial, and physical well being. In my quest to find wholeness, wellness, and end the 40 years of obesity that ravaged my body, I found that it was my own stories that were keeping me trapped in processed food addiction. Once I started asking the right questions, those same stories led to brand new consciousness, mindfulness, and agency. Each month on Get the Backstory Live, we take on the tough questions so you can find the healing, hope, and transformation hidden in your story.
Welcome. Welcome to Get the Backstory. Welcome to Get the Backstory Live. It is so good to see everybody. We are broadcasting tonight. I'm broadcasting tonight from Columbia, Maryland, in this beautiful space, the third, a woman of color entrepreneur incubator here in Maryland. And we're here every third Tuesday of the month addressing issues, health issues that impact us, and asking the hard questions so we can get to the root of some real answers that actually serve our health. So tonight we're talking about fibroids. I cannot wait until you hear the stories and hear the insights of the women that are going to be on the panel tonight. And I have never I've never had a problem with fibroids, never experienced them, but I've certainly had many friends that have struggled with them over the years. And the thing about them is they could be as small as a cherry or as large as a watermelon. But whatever the case, these tumors, these uterine tumors, cause stress, they cause discomfort, they cause heavy bleeding, they cause heavy pain, they can lead to infertility. And the truth of the matter is that 80% of African American women will have some sort of struggle with fibroids before the age of 50. And this is something that we have to talk about, because we got to get to the root of this when it comes to our health, well-being, and healing. So the first guest that I'd like to bring on tonight, I'd love to tell you all about her. She is Dr. Tonoah Hampton, a true force of positive transformation and empowerment. I love reading about you, Dr. Tonoah. With a powerful blend of wisdom, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to helping others, she has risen to awe-inspiring heights as a doctor of strategic leadership, registered nurse, life coach, and licensed and ordained minister. Welcome to Get the Backstory Live.
Thank you for having me here this evening. I appreciate it.
I cannot wait until the audience head hears what you have to say. I love your story. So our next guest I would like to introduce is Caroline Brewer. Caroline Brewer is a professional speaker, author, content creator, literary activist, consultant, and former Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist. Caroline is today focused heavily on inspiring children socially, emotionally, and intellectually through her children's books and work as a literacy consultant. She is the author most recently of Say Their Names, a picture book story told by 7-year-old Aaliyah, who leads a march for love inspired change and helps people understand the history, healing power, and meaning of saying the names of those lost to police and racial violence. She is also the proud author of Darius Daniels' Game On, which is a middle grade novel in verse of Wizard of Oz type virtual fantasy sprinkled with more than 10 forms of poetry. I want to welcome Caroline to the show tonight. And I'm looking forward to you sharing your story with our audience as well. Good to see you, Caroline.
Good to see you too, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
And I also want to bring on stage, bring to the camera, bring to the box, um, Thema Azize Serwa. Thema, Where are you? Where are you, Thema? Got to see you in the room.
Woo! I'm here.
Thema Azize Serwa is the leading expert in the vaginal steaming industry. She has created a unique method of vaginal steaming that provides over 25 biopsychosocial health benefits that has been ranked #1 in the industry by Mac Media TV. Thema's work has also been talked about in HuffPost for its impact on women entrepreneurs. Her work has been celebrated in local publications, local and international radio, and in thousands of households. She has also advanced her hashtag Healing Everything movement by training and certifying womb sauna practitioners in 9 different countries.
We at 15 now. We at
It's 15 now. Okay. Those numbers keep rising. Those numbers keep rising.
yes.
Empowerment mogul, known for her public speaking, high energy and transparency, and a best-selling author who is dedicated to demonstrating to the world the value and impact of the womb sauna experience. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, ladies.
Yeah.
And I think I want to start off the conversation tonight and just say this. And this is the question I'd like for all of you to address. When you hear the words fibroids, when I say the word fibroids, what what comes to you? What comes up for you? And Dr. Tonoah, if you would start the conversation, we can kind of roll. We can kind of roll with it from there.
No problem. So I cringe when I hear it because I think about my own journey, but then I think about the number of women that I have either cared for as a nurse or friends that I've had that are going through their own journey. And I kind of cringe because we don't always have the information and we think it's one decision or another. And everyone's experience is a little bit different. And if a hysterectomy was the answer, I should have been cured. But for me, even after hysterectomy, I still had issues with the fibroid. So I cringe.
Oh, my goodness, my goodness. Caroline, when you hear the word,
Yes, it also brings up a sense of dread for me because of the 12 years of experience that I had with fibroids. The memory is painful on the one hand, but also I learned so much in uh, during the journey, and I ultimately achieved victory over over the persecution, the torture, and the misery that was brought on by the fibroid experience.
I'm so happy to hear you say that you achieved some victory, and I've got to tell you, as I was reading about it, as I was reading about the condition on paper, it seemed, I don't know if benign is the word that I want to use, but the words didn't seem to describe
The
what
reality.
the reality of what the experience is. So I read, oh, they are non-cancerous tumors inside the uterus, inside the womb. Sometimes they're painful, sometimes they're not painful. You may have trouble urinating, you may have heavy cycles. Then that's that's kind of what it says, right? And the experience that I've heard from so many is so different than that. And I want to come over to you, Thema, because I saw you nodding your head. I saw you
Yeah.
nodding your head both when Dr. Tona was speaking and so was Caroline. And I want to hear what comes to your mind when you hear the word fibroids.
So I love what you threw into the mix as well, Michelle. And there's two words that immediately come to my mind. The first one, common. Fibroids are common. And secondly, opportunity. So what you're describing is true. When you Google fibroids, what fibroids are is very different from what people experience. So really the issue isn't the fibroids, it's how they are cared for and treated. And that's where the gap is, because women are not experiencing the highest level of care.
Ah,
And so the opportunity is for us to gain more education and resources so that we no longer have to be intimidated and have so much grief around the experience with fibroids.
oh man. So your answer leads me right back to Caroline, right? Because the reason that she is on this show tonight, because I was kind of, we were out and about, and I was brainstorming with her and talking about this show and how I felt like it was important to do. And she says, "Oh, Michelle, I have a fibroid story for you." And Thema, as you would talk, what what really resonated with me about what you said is that we have an opportunity to investigate how we care for them. And even Dr. Tonoah, you said hysterectomy is not the only answer. If it had been, your situation would be different. And Caroline, I feel like that this is the perfect opportunity for you to tell your story, because as I was reading this, I'm reading the information, I'm thinking, all right, what causes it? Why is it that Black women have more fibroids than the average bear? What's going on? And they listed a number of different things, but the thing that really resonated with me and popped out was stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, all right, there must be something to this. And then I was reading something else, and it spoke to diet. It spoke to it spoke to that, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is something we need to investigate. So Caroline, please, I want to share your story. I want you to share your story and your experience and how you got to the healing and what your thought process was through your story.
Okay, thank you. So, as I mentioned, it was a 12-year journey, at least 12 years. I think it went on even longer than that, but I remember getting to the 12th year. So, when I was first diagnosed as having fibroid tumors, um, Thema's comment about care is so important, because I didn't know anyone at that point who'd had fibroid tumors. And I was simply told by my doctor, if you don't bother them, they won't bother you. And so, what the heck does that mean? Um, I really didn't understand, but I didn't get any more guidance than that. And over the years, the bleeding got heavier and heavier and heavier, and it got to the point, and I immediately began to go to Google and see, well, what are these things? And it was exactly as you described. It sounded benign. It sounded as if, okay, I'll be okay. Maybe there'll be some heavy bleeding, but I'll be okay. Um, there were, I don't think I ever saw anything about stress, but I did see uh, information about hormones. Maybe it was something in our food, like the chicken or beef, and I'd always uh, had a diet that was very light on red meat. So I started to avoid eating chicken, especially chicken that had the hormones in it. And none of that seemed to help. Over the years, it just, I had what's called breakthrough bleeding. So that means you bleed so heavily it goes through your clothing. And so, of course, that's horrifying. It's not a situation any woman wants to be in, ever. Um, it just so happened that during most of this time, I was working from home. I had just started my own business as a literacy consultant. And so that was kind of a safe space for me. But of course, I had to leave the house. I had to go out and be in public with people. And I was always concerned about what was going to happen. Well, it got to the point where I was bedridden during um, my monthly cycle. It was so heavy. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't work. I stayed in bed. I did a lot of praying, a lot of reading. I consider
Was it
myself,
painful? Was it painful for you, Caroline?
actually did not have any pain, um, but the bleeding was disturbing. Um, and so I finally went to see a naturopathic doctor, a Black woman, and she literally asked me to answer 100 questions before I got to her. And I never had a doctor ask me so many questions, not only about my health history, but about my lifestyle. And so one of the first things she said to me, because she noticed my sleeping pattern was irregular, I would go to bed around midnight, wake up at 3 in the morning, start writing again, researching, working, then go to bed again at 6 and then get up at 9. I don't know how I developed that schedule, but that's what I had. And she said, Caroline, you need to sleep through the night. And the first night I slept through the night, I slept for 11 hours. I had no idea how tired I was. I had no idea how stressed I was. I thought I was the best at managing stress. I wore it like a badge of honor. And I also, for many months, became mostly vegan because she wanted me to, just cleanse myself and get a lot of things out of my diet. And so I did that. um, the big thing for her was self care. She saw that my lifestyle was not a lifestyle of care, where I was really caring for myself and putting myself first. I was putting work first, and that's really the issue, I think, for most Black women. Then after her came along a dear friend who was deeply spiritual, and she encouraged me with affirmations, and her affirmations centered around love, and she kept saying that I was loved. And I thought it was strange. I was saying to myself, of course I'm loved. I know I'm loved. I love myself. I've got family and friends who love me. I didn't feel that I wasn't loved, but she was such a dear friend and so intelligent around spiritual matters. I began to ask myself, why is she continuing to say this to me? And and then I realized that I wasn't feeling loved. That I this whole ordeal was making me feel as if I had been abandoned in some way, as if I was on my own to handle this. I felt like a failure. I felt miserable. I was living with my daughter at the time, and she was watching me go through this, and I didn't think I was a good example for her. And it was not until I began to go deep on what it means to love myself, to not only give myself permission to sleep through the night and not get up in the middle of the night and do work, but to take breaks, to go on walks, to um, do whatever I felt like I wanted to do and not be a slave to a job or even a career that I had created for myself. That's when the healing happened, because by this time, I wanted it so badly. It was affecting my relationships, and it was affecting my ability to work. I remember working really hard for probably a year and a half to get a contract, the biggest consulting contract I'd gotten. And within days, I started bleeding so heavily I couldn't function. So when I went in on these affirmations about loving myself and caring for myself and not feeling abandoned, um, that's when the healing happened.
So, so when you talk about loving yourself, I mean, there were a couple of points in your story where I saw Thema and Dr. Tonoah nod. You were nodding your heads, and so Thema, I want to say that there were points when you were nodding your heads. What were you thinking when you were nodding your heads about what she was saying?
Well, I really believe that the healing starts internally, that we are spiritual first, having this human experience. And I believe that our body is obedient to our consciousness. And
Ooh,
so
oh,
a lot of times we interpret disease and imbalance as our body working against us. But we have to remember that our body is the house of our soul. It will do whatever is necessary to survive and put us in a position of power in our lives. And so, even though these experiences are uncomfortable, like I love, Caroline, what you shared, you were so transparent about what you were experiencing physiologically, but then you got us to what you were actually experiencing emotionally. And by the time we get the physical manifestations, it's because the body has been ringing the alarm about what's going on emotionally and spiritually. And it says, I wonder if she starts bleeding through her pants, if she'll wake up and pay attention to the message. I wonder if the blood pressure goes up. Don't get me preaching, Michelle. You know how it goes. You just will get ready. But like I can so relate. And so one of the things that I'm doing with myself and with other women is teaching them to live in the power position, to not require so much adversity and disease
Mhm.
and crisis before you wake up and take full ownership over your life.
Yes, yes. I when you said your body is obedient to your consciousness, I I'm so glad you said it because I read it from when the workshop we did a couple of weeks ago. I took
Mhm.
notes and I have been reading that for like the past couple of mornings. And every time I read it, your body is obedient to your consciousness. It resonates with me. It resonates with me on so many levels. And I have an experience. It's not a fibroid experience, but it speaks to your body giving you signals, and we don't know how to recognize what those signals mean. And one of the things that I've been talking about lately, and Caroline, you heard me, and this kind of gets me on a soapbox when I hear or I see all these ads around controlling hunger. Take this, it'll control your hunger. And you know that I'm because of my journey and my food addiction and obesity, that I'm sensitive to that. But here's the thing, and here's how it's twisted, is that hunger is data. We need to be hungry.
Yes.
Hunger gives us information. Hunger
Mhm.
tells us that it's time for nutrition and nourishment. But this is the environment has it all twisted. Control, we don't need to control hunger. What we need to know how to do is recognize real hunger for what it is and then respond in a way that serves our bodies.
Mhm.
That's what we really know how. That's what we really know how to do. But it's unpacking that and getting through what's real in this toxic environment that we live in, right?
Yes.
So that's where we are. So your body being obedient to your consciousness. This is all about raising our consciousness, raising our consciousness. So yes, thank you. So Dr. Tonoa, I want you to, if you can, go back to what you were thinking when you were nodding your head during Caroline's story.
So
Because
as I,
something hit you. Something hit you. A couple of things hit you.
yeah, because her story resonates with me. So she said 12 years. So 12 years, 12 abdominal surgeries is my story. So, I remember the days just as she described of the bleeding. I used to call it like a slaughtered pig. Like that's how I felt. It was just that much as if someone had been slaughtered. And I would have experienced that throughout my childhood. So I started my menses at 8, and I had that bleeding from the time I was 8, not knowing what to do with it, clear through having children. And they told you if you have your first child, it'll get better. It won't be the same. And mine was painful. So
Mm.
as I listened to Caroline's story, her journey, I got to healing as well, but it was 12 years, 12 abdominal surgeries. And so, yes, I had the fibroid removed. I had the hysterectomy, and you would say that that's the end of your story. But it wouldn't be the end of my story. And though they say it's benign, I would eventually have one of the tests positive for the breast cancer marker.
Wow.
Right. And so my journey, that I took was the space. I'm a nurse. I know what to do. I used to be over 300 pounds, lost 150 pounds. I was good at controlling my space. I understood the importance of wellness and all of those things. But here I was continuing to have these abdominal surgeries. And I remember the one doctor, he was so excited because he went in to do a regular just GYN checkup. And he says, something's there. Is it painful when you have sex? And I was like, oh, yeah, it is. It's kind of painful. And he says, something's there. No problem. He says, I want you to go have a CAT scan. So go have that CAT scan. And it comes back that I have a fibrotic uterus. No, sir. I don't have a fibrotic uterus. And how I know I don't have one, not only did I have a hysterectomy, 3 months later after the hysterectomy, my bowels fell through that vaginal cuff from where I had the hysterectomy.
Oh,
So I know I didn't have anything there, sir. Can't.
wow.
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 So here I am, this young mother. I'm a nurse. I'm like Caroline. I'm doing it. I'm excelling in my ranks in my profession. Sleep habit. I wake up at 4:30. I go to bed at whatever time. People say, how do you do all the things you do? Oh, I'm raising 4 kids. Like trying to do all of those things. But I wasn't caring for me. I was giving all of my capacity, all of my energy to other people and other things. And so in 2015, I had my last surgery because the fibroids were growing on my liver.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So remember, because I don't have a uterus, so they were showing up everywhere. They showed up on my bowel. They showed up on my stomach, a couple of times on my liver, retroperitoneal wall, and they have to go get them. And when they think they're going in to get one, they're clusters, and they are not showing up. And what was supposed to be slow growing, they're absolutely fast growing, because what we started to be able to track mine every year and a half. Something would show up. But in 2015, I had my last surgery. I got the whole team out. We got the liver specialist, we got the GI doctor, we got the GYN oncologist, we got everybody. And I had my last surgery, and I got this one doctor, and he says, let me look at your history. So he went and pulled all of the records. And he recommended I go see the medical oncologist. But while I laid on the bed to recover, I had that moment with God where he began to have a conversation with me. And the scripture I remember coming to mind was, is there a balm in Gilead? Like, where are the physicians? Like, the people were hungry to find it. But as I searched and studied that scripture, it really wasn't what we thought. The people had been in sin. They had this space. They had this wound that was incurable, is what it goes on to say. But he promised health and healing. And so I just began to study the balm and do all of that work. But laying there, he says, now you're going to have to deal with the things, because the issues keep coming back in the place of your womb, the place of your woman, the place where you were supposed to give life. And he allowed me to go on a journey to remind myself of a time that I put so far in the back of my mind, was when I was molested at 3. And then at 5. And then at 8. And he showed, in my moments, God allowed me to see that I was holding so much trauma. So there's a book out that's also called The Body Keeps the Score. And my body was keeping the score of all of the trauma and all of the things that I had gone through. And I wouldn't talk about it, hadn't talked about it. And so it was killing me. And in that moment, I laid there recovering, having to make the decision of what I would do, because I have these children to raise. Because, I'm allergic to everything. So each time I had to have a surgery, I would have some adverse effect. But yet I was still the mother. I was still the nurse that was trying to get back to work. And I had that one doctor say to me, he said, I need you to lay here and get well, because they will take your name off that voicemail and sign off your door, and they will replace you. And no one will ever remember all that you've done.
Oh.
And in that moment, he invited me to care for myself. He invited me to have that conversation. And I initially started the chemotherapy. I did, but it started making me go blind. My legs were hurting. And so I called that same doctor up, who was kind enough to go through my medical record to tell me what this is that I'm experiencing. And I said to him, I can't take this medicine anymore. And he said, no problem. He said, you're going to do this. You're going to go pray that they never return. And I'm going to do my job, and I'll run the tests. We know how frequently they come. And I did just that. I began to kind of take care of myself, talk to God about some things, release some things related to all the hurt and the pain, which I have a nonprofit now called The Bomb. And it's really about helping women achieve optimal health and well being in the 7 areas of social determinants of health, and really taking a look at that. And I get the wonderful opportunity to kind of blend what I do best. I'm a nurse by trade, but I'm a minister, and I believe that all of those things are connected. And anytime one of them are off, you will not be able to show up your best self. So I invite women to be introspective, having a real honest conversation with themselves. We're honest with a lot of people. We tell everybody the truth, but we often lie to ourselves
Yes.
Yeah.
where we are, what we feel, what's impacting us. And then we extend ourselves beyond what we are capable of doing. And really, that's all sin is when you begin to depend on yourself and choose things that are in the extreme, then you begin to try to take the power into your own hand. And you didn't create you. You got to depend on the Father. You got to depend on those affirmations. Where do I encourage people to get them from? I'm personally a Christian, so I encourage them to get it from the Word of God. I encourage them to say it to themselves so that they can understand and know that there's hope. And it
Yes.
simply does not have to be your life.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of that. And you know what? The what you said about that book about the body keeps score and the trauma, and I all of this resonated with me because I survivor of childhood sexual abuse as well, right? And I when you talk about losing the was it 150 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
so I get it. I mean, I struggled with that for 40 years, yo-yo dieting over 700 pounds, back and forth. And so it rests with us, right? And we don't know how to care for ourselves. And with that statement, theme, I feel like I need to go to you
Yeah.
around how we care for ourselves. How do we get past this environment that that puts up these roadblocks, for
Mhm.
us to care for ourselves. And I know you have some insight on that.
Yeah, that's such a great question because it begins with your value system. So most of us have a value system where we use our body every day, but we actually don't have a real relationship with our bodies. Even when you look at a cat, the first thing it does is wakes up, stretches, gives the body an opportunity to wake up and become fully present. Most of us hit the ground running because we've given our lives to everybody else. I'm an ordained interfaith minister, but I grew up in the Christian tradition. And as a Christian, I was taught a value system that my life didn't belong to me. And it was about servitude. Now, I'll serve, but I ain't nobody serving. Right? And there's a difference in your value system. I prefer to give my gifts from a cup that's overflowing, but it took time for me to get clear about that. And then it took time for me to train every cell and organ in my body that we are no longer overgiving and performing for our blessings and love and prosperity. So I love that my sisters told their fibroid story first because mine is very different. I didn't even know I had fibroids until they were dead. So I was in my doctor's office and they had done a pelvic ultrasound for something else that was going on with my body. And they said, "Oh, you did a good job killing those fibroids." And I said, "What y'all talking about?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, you had 3 fibroids that you killed, and the only thing that's left is the calcifications, the remnants of those fibroids." So I looked at the ultrasound technician and I said, "So what are we gonna do about that?" And she said, "Ma'am, you can't get rid of those. They have to be cut out of your body." And I looked at her and I said, "My body doesn't obey that. It obeys what I say. And I'm saying that you don't know me and my God. When I come back in 3 months, these calcifications will be gone." What happened next was I was woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning because there was a flood under my kitchen sink. And as I woke up to deal with that, Spirit said to me, you have the solution in your cabinet. And I said, the solution of what, God? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. We couldn't have this conversation at 8. I don't know why spirit does it at 3 o'clock in the morning. But in my cabinet, I had bought a tool that I wanted to test for my clients called Endovan. And it is a combination of things that will dissolve abnormal growths in the body. I forgot that that was sitting in the cabinet. I took it. The next time they saw me, they couldn't find not even the remnants. And this is the last piece I'll say about my fibroid story. I knew who those 3 pieces were. I would call their names out, but this is a public forum. But I knew which people it was. I said, oh, that one is that one, and that one. And it's time for them to go because I decree that I do not hold dead things in my womb. My womb is a seat of sacred creative power. And I'm going to practice my power the same way these doctors practice their medicine on my body. I'm going to practice my power in this experience. And so that was by the time I figured out I had fibroids, they were dead. And so then I had to deal with the dead things. And so what I teach my clients who experience fibroids is that they are containers for what you wished would have occurred in your life differently. And the quickest way to begin the healing process is to drop into full acceptance of what your life has become and to release all of that resistance out of your body so that your body no longer feels like its assignment is to digest the pain over and over. Yes, we all have our share of trauma, but we all don't have to live in the energy of that trauma, right? So, by the time they got to the next, because I had to get an MRI and some other things, I had some other things going on in my health, they could not even find any of what was there. And I said, okay, thank you, body, for agreeing with me.
Oh, so I've got to ask this question because this is to all 3 of you, because this is way beyond positive thinking, right? This is way beyond that. And I hear so much of well, I'm just going to love myself, but it's the words, not the substance behind the words. So you can say it, but ultimately, if you're not making self-loving choices or self-honoring choices, those words don't mean anything. But many of us say it, but we don't even know we're not making self-honoring choices. We think those choices are. We think that it is love. We don't recognize some of the things that we do to our bodies as being unloving. And here's what comes up for me. I have a friend that accuses me of bringing everything back to food, but sometimes I can't help it. But I saw a Facebook post a while back. It was a picture of a breakfast. And the breakfast, yes, Heather, you're right. The words and the actions have to go together. Yes. I saw a picture of a breakfast, and it was some scrambled eggs. It was it was some bacon. It was a biscuit, and it might have been some grits or something else on it. And the caption said something like, oh, my friend brought me this breakfast because she loves me and knows that I don't take care of myself, and I needed this, and I that's what friends do, or something like this. And I looked at the plate, and I was like, well, what would she feed you if she didn't love you? What does she feed her enemies? Because that plate of stuff's gonna kill you. But I get the piece of the thought of doing that for somebody. But when I hear, oh, this is, this is my love language, right? Cooking and baking and pound cakes and caramel cakes and all that. And I'm thinking, but all right, that refined sugar is not good for anybody. How do you what's loving about that is the piece that gets to me. So I say I'm asking this question is how do we know what we're doing and saying and thinking and believing as it relates to the fibroids or anything that's going on in our body, that the energy that we're giving to it is really the loving energy that's going to heal it. How do we get to know that? Can anybody?
I would say that you have to go through a deep process of interrogating your thoughts and your actions. I considered myself the queen of positivity. My mother, queen of positivity. Nothing negative ever came out of her mouth in terms of a challenge. She was always talking about overcoming and accomplishing anything you set your mind to. And so that was ingrained in me. And so when my friend Carol talked to me about being loved and telling me I could never be separated from God's love, which was one of my favorite scriptures, that stunned me because I thought, why is she talking to me about love? I know all about self-love and and so because she was a dear friend and I loved her and I respected her um, as a deeply spiritual being, I began to interrogate my actions. Are these the actions of a person who loves themselves? And I began to see that the way I was behaving around work, I was elevating work. I was elevating money. I was elevating the acquisition of material things, even though I'd never considered myself materialistic. Um, all of these things, we don't realize it. We make them idols, and what that means is they become the thing that's more important than us. And
Mm.
that's how you know when you're not practicing self love, when
Mhm.
you say you can work until 4 o'clock and not have another meal. You can work 7 days a week because it has to get done. You can um, drive all night, all the next day to get to this destination that you've always wanted to go to career wise, constantly sacrificing your health and your well being, and not knowing what it means to love yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to share, I do a lot of work around love with my students because they're not reading on grade level because they're not capable.
Right.
They're not reading on grade level because they haven't had a loving experience around intellectual stimulation. So, one of the exercises I do with them is to write a poem called I Love Myself When. When do you love yourself? And that, when I found that poem, I had never asked myself or answered that question with
Ooh.
myself.
Ooh.
And there was a little girl who was who appeared to be very angry and always willing to fight. And she was only 8 years old in the third grade. And when we did that poem, the first thing she wrote was, I love myself when I'm fighting. And I asked her, what does she mean when she was fighting? And she said, punching and kicking people. It turned out that she was from a home that was verbally abusive because I witnessed it. And so it took her almost 2 hours to let go of loving herself when she's fighting and punching people, to say that she loved herself when she was on her skates and when she was dancing. And she's a terrific dancer. And I forget the third thing. but that changed her. She was also an amazing artist, and so she never had the opportunity to examine when she loves herself. And so now she could let go of this thing that she thought was protecting her and embrace the things that really lifted her. So it's a deep experience. You have to be willing to be honest with yourself. It was very painful for me to acknowledge that I was really stressed by working independently, um, and so many other things. But that when I began to understand what it means to love me, to give myself permission to take naps, to go on walks, to take a vacation, even if the money was low, I still deserved it. If
Yes.
I would put myself in the shoes of a best friend, what would my best friend say to me? My best friend would say, Caroline, take a break. Caroline, step away, go take lunch.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve this.
Yeah.
Who would say to their friend, be a slave to that job, never take a break,
Yeah.
never go out for a walk, no matter how exhausted you are from giving to your family and your friends and your work, you never take a day off.
Yeah.
That's not what a friend would say to a friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the the counsel of being a wise friend to yourself, and that language of honest interrogation. Right? We gotta, I think about sometimes when I was on my own journey, and for years I didn't have a full length mirror in my house. I didn't have a full length mirror. I always wanted to take pictures standing behind somebody or from the neck up, and it wasn't until I got to that, what you said, Caroline, honest interrogation, because you can't fix what you can't face. Yeah, you
You
got
must identify it.
True.
you got to identify it. But Dr. Tonoah, I want to say that all during Carolyn's her comments, I saw you nodding. I started you nodding your head, and I feel like you have something to add around how do we know that we're really loving ourselves? How do we know that we're really caring for ourselves?
I think that she kind of hit it dead on the head is really that space of introspection, but in the sense of figuring out who you are, right? If you don't even know who you are, I think that's many of our problems, right? We grew up in homes and we've experienced situations, some of us in the womb before we were ever born, and then we are birthed into a world and we're impacted by that environment and that family. And the world around us is feeding us so many things to tell us that this is what love is. And
Mhm.
so we're taking in all of this, information, data collection, and we're beginning to use that to form who we are and what we think love is. And I think that once we have to take that moment to ask ourselves the tough questions
Mhm.
and really determine who you are
Yes. Yes.
and how were you showing up in those spaces. And then you can begin to say, okay, this is who I am. Now, is this really love? And then what do we use as that standard of love?
Mhm. Oh, this I love this conversation about love, right? Because as we're sitting here and we're having this conversation, we're talking about fibroids, this specific condition, but I think the larger conversation is that we're talking about that stuff in our life that is toxic,
Mhm.
that stuff in our life that is causing health problems for us or causing issues for us. And the fibroids are just representative of that. The thing
Yeah.
that I want to talk about this love and how it shows up is that I remember in my own life when, man, when that recession of 2008, 2010 hit, right? And I was devastated. I was devastated career wise. I was devastated financially. I mean, I was out of work, right? Couldn't find work, and all my resources were drying up. And I felt like I have worked all my life to acquire these things that Caroline was talking about, these trappings of success, and now it's all disappearing. And there was a point where I I didn't want to kill myself, but I certainly wanted to go to sleep and not wake up for a long time. That's where I was. And a cousin of mine came to visit me, and I'm from the country. If you can't tell by my accent, from a little small town in the South. And and when country people come to visit, they stay for a long time, right? They stay for a couple of weeks. And so my cousin came to visit me. She's a play cousin, about 10 years older. And as I sit here and I tell you this story today, I feel like she was an angel that was sent from God, because every day for the 2 days that she spent, 2 weeks that she spent with me, 14 days, she must have said to me 4 times an hour, I love you. I love you. I got, I love you. I love you. I love you 4 times an hour for 14 days straight, maybe more than that while she was there. And I never told her what was going on with me, right? She must have felt it. She must have sensed it. God must have put it in her. But she, I'm telling you, she saved my life just by saying the words, because the whole time when she got there, I was feeling quite unloved, right? I was feeling quite worthless. I was feeling like, man, really, quite frankly, what is the point if it has to be like this? And so the power of the words, and the power of the actions, and it wasn't like she did anything specific, but what she had was not just the words, but she had the energy.
Mhm.
She had energy behind the words that really transformed the place that I was in. And that's kind of what I hear with all of what you all are saying, is that we have the words, the actions have to follow, right? But the energy has to be there behind that to make the shift happen, to
Yeah.
make the movement happen. Um, so, Thema, you're back.
I'm back, and I just wanted to jump in this conversation because it's so yummy and it's so potent. It's feeding me. I know we're talking for the audience, but I'm feeding off of what all of you are saying. So I just want to express that gratitude. But I think, especially for Black women, we should consider not making healing and accomplishment the goal anymore. So my mantra in my life has been alignment over achievement, because the reality is we're going to leave earth from something, whether it's a stroke or whatever, right? So sometimes our expectations of life's journey are unrealistic.
Mhm.
I have a whole class on my online university about the myths about fibroids, because you literally have women thinking, I'm having this experience because I did something wrong. But there's a whole genetic factor. We got mummies with fibroids. It's beyond what you eat, right? You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't GMOs back in ancient Egypt, right? Like, we got to really put this in perspective, because we're whipping on ourselves and we're masking it as, oh, I'm healing, oh, I'm doing the work. But sometimes the medicine is not doing the work and just accepting and allowing
Yeah.
and taking the process. So what I measure my progress by is no longer like, oh, did I necessarily get rid of everything and that's making me uncomfortable? It's, can I end each day with gratitude and joy?
Mm-hmm.
Because adversity we can bank on.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is going to have their share of trauma. We need to stop elevating trauma,
Trauma.
right? And we need to normalize it. Everybody has trauma. So now what? Now what's the conversation? Now what are we striving for? It's beyond, I'm just trying to make sure I can avoid adversity.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer learning what to do when it shows up at my door.
Yes. Because it's always going to show up.
It's gonna always, so I just wanted to throw that in the mix, because I watch women like beat on themselves and try to force their bodies to change. And I'm like, yeah, we can create change, but before we do that, can we honor the body you have right now? I teach women how to talk to their fibroids and how to really get present to what you've created in your body and learn to love where you are right now as you continue to transform. So I think there's a delicate balance, and I think we need more attention raised to some, I don't know where we get that from, and maybe some of the other sisters can add some insight, but I feel like we are hard on ourselves for no reason.
So we tend to operate in extremes.
Yes.
And so
I
when you
did that earlier.
yeah, when we put ourselves in this place of extremes, it's all or nothing. And in health, really, the journey is somewhere in between. There's some days that you're going to be really, really good in some areas. Okay. Accept it, acknowledge it. What can you do differently if you need to do anything differently?
Right.
Because if you sit long enough, you may realize that you just needed that moment to rest. So though you telling yourself, oh my, I gotta get going, I gotta do one more thing, I'm gonna stay late. Like that's my example tonight. Like I could stay and do one more thing, hustle, grind.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's flow.
I got somewhere to be at 7:00. I'm gonna catch you later. I'm gonna take
Hello?
this computer with me. I'll double check on you here, my cell phone number, right? Giving myself permission not to have to do it all. Set the expectation that somebody else carried their weight. As Black women, I think we often carry the weight of so many people.
Yeah.
Holding ourselves responsible for the change. But the thing that we got to recognize is that some things are their choices. Therefore, it has to be their invoice. They have to pay the piper for the things that they do.
Yeah.
They got a God too.
Yeah.
And you can't fix it.
Yeah.
But we've been taught to fix it. We've been taught to be overachievers. I love all of my education. But what I understand now, I probably could have saved some of that.
Come on.
And got me some sleep. Because these last 2 years with some sleepless nights, and do it really equate to the dollar signs that my kids will spend on their trips around the world when I go.
Oh my God. Yo, I feel like we're just getting started, and here we are at the end of our hour. Oh man. So this insight has just been it has been so beautiful and so wonderful. And I can tell by the comments, and I didn't get to all the comments in the chat, y'all, I'm sorry, that this was a home run, right? That the who was listening in the audience got some insight, they got some inspiration, they got some healing, that they got some ideas. And the biggest takeaway for me, just listening to all three of you, is that just being present, like I'm enough. Like just my existence is enough. I don't have to bring something. I don't have to do something. I don't have to do something to feel like I'm valued. That my value is in my existence, not by how much more I can do and how much more I can produce. And that for us to get some peace around that, and just to honor our presence, right? To honor our existence is gets us in alignment, gets us in alignment, and keeps us in alignment. So I want to thank you all so much. Dr. Tonoah Hampton, I appreciate you. Caroline, I appreciate you so much. Thema Serwa Azize, I appreciate that. Is Azize Serwa. I got it out.
Thema Azize
Serwa. I love you so much, my sisters. And what I want you to do, I think we have enough time. So each of you, if you want to just let whoever is listening know how they can contact you if they would like to connect with you. I want to give you an opportunity to do that before we shut down. Okay. Dr. Tonoah, you want to go first?
Yeah, so you can always follow me on social media. I am Dr. Tonoah Hampton on Facebook, or go to my website, tonoahhampton.com. Again, The Bomb Inc. is my nonprofit committed to health and wellness for women. So check me out.
Love it.
I'm Caroline Brewer Books.com, and my email address is Caroline@CarolineBrewerBooks.com.
Beautiful. I again am Thema Azize Serwa. You can connect and join my email list at thewombsauna.com, and I'm on every social media platform. If you go to the website, you'll see how to connect with me there as well.
All right, ladies. Thank you. Thank you so much. Love all y'all.
Thank
Appreciate you. We'll see you next month on Get the Backstory Live.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Get the Backstory Live here at the Third. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. Be sure and save the date now for next month. That's the third Tuesday in September, September 15th. We'll be bringing you the backstory on the secrets to beating the statistics and staying healthy and sexy at 60 and beyond. So stay close and stay connected. To join my mailing list and stay in the know, just scan the QR code on the screen. Yes, I'm social. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Connect with me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my YouTube channel at I Am Brand New Now. All at I Am Brand New Now. And if your organization or you or anyone you know is looking for a speaker, workshop facilitator, panelist, or host, reach out to me at michellepettiesspeaks.com. I got you. If you'd like to read how I finally won my 40-year battle with obesity, exactly how I overcame stress eating, emotional overeating, and yo-yo dieting, reach out to me at michellepettiess.com, and I will personally send you a signed copy of my book, Leaving Large, The Stories of a Food Addict. And I will even cover the shipping. How about that? Finally, I want to let you know about my upcoming free webinar, Because I See You, Because I Know You. Professionally, you're always at the top of your game. Always have been. But when it comes to managing your weight, that is and always has been another story entirely. I created this free webinar, Fit for More Than Success, just for you. In it, you will learn how to change that story. To attend, just scan the QR code on the screen. I would like to thank my awesome sisters of the Third for all that they do. And next month, if you happen to be in the DMV, it would be such an honor to have you join us as a member of the Get the Backstory Live audience. It's all love, y'all. See you next month, if not before.
Missy credits. Oh man, yes. Mel, are you still around, man? Are you gone?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Yay.
Good show. It was a great show. Very good. You had a lot of comments. I'm glad you started to acknowledge them. You got to look for those comments and acknowledge the people so they come back next week.
Okay. Or next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
So next month I put up about 15 comments.
I saw them. I saw them. I tried to get to them. I'm better than my first show when I didn't do any at all.
Yes. But you can interrupt somebody and say, "Look, we have an interesting comment from so and so." Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that because you want to keep the audience interactive. It's 29. 29 keeps changing. It looks like 2980 something.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, now it's 2992. It keeps moving.
All right. I don't know what happened to La'ana, but
that was fine. You had enough. Having 3 people, fine.
Yeah, they were really good too.
Excellent. They were excellent.
Yeah.
And they shared, and everyone had a different way of approaching it. Some shared something very personal. Other people talked more clinically. It was interesting.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about something that I did a lot of writing years ago in sociological journals and anthropological journals too. I did quite a bit of research, and I was interested in language, and it's relevant to what you're doing so much. I try to understand the meaning of words, and it's not as simple as you think it is. It's very complicated, and let me just sum this up for you quickly. people can think about any particular word morally, they can think about it emotionally or effectively, and they can think about it cognitively.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the day, we're involved in different forms of behavior in different institutions, educational, financial, family, friends, military, business, finance. I mean, there's all different modes of activity. And so any word or any experience is treated differently. Like, for example, if you're in a religious setting and you say thou shalt not kill, that's a moral imperative. If you're in the military and you say that thou shalt not kill, that may not be valued so highly in a battlefield situation.
Right.
So yet, how do you understand the meaning of words when meanings are shifting all day long? So if you want to have this dialogue with yourself, it's very complicated because you have to understand at the particular moment, what the hell am I talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. Context.
Yeah. So I did a lot of research on this and on body language too, and I also looked at muscle movements. There are over 5,000 muscles in the face, and when you look at somebody, depending on which muscles are being affected by what you're thinking and feeling, you have a different expression. It's very subtle, and only somebody that studies facial muscles and facial analysis would understand it. So I guess what I'm saying to you is there's a lot of complexity in what you're trying to get people to think about. And they have to understand that the complexity can be managed, but they have to be very aware of how they're thinking about something and where they're thinking about it at a particular moment.
Yes.
And that goes to the idea of alignment.
Yes. It's layered. There's so many layers to all of this. I mean, we can still, if you don't mind, we can still talk, but I need to get out of the space. I need to pack up a little bit.
Go ahead. Okay, no problem. We can talk another time. I just wanted to share that with you.
Okay. Thanks, Mel. All right.
Bye-bye.